Imagine this. A young couple driving down a desolate stretch of highway late at night. The moon is full, the air thick with silence, and then they see it. A figure standing in the middle of the road. They swerve to avoid it, but when they look back, there's nothing there. That stretch of highway is infamous, and the stories from travelers are as eerie as they are unexplained. Highways, the arteries of our modern world, seem like the last place you'd expect horror to take root. Yet, they are often the setting for some of the most chilling stories ever told. Highway horror is a genre that spans across urban legends, true crime, and paranormal encounters. These stories persist, often passed down as warnings or campfire tales, giving us a glimpse into the terrifying unpredictability of the road. Think about it. Long, empty highways, far from the safety of towns or cities, create the perfect setting for our imaginations to run wild. Whether it's shadowy figures at the roadside, phantom hitchhikers, or vehicles that vanish into thin air, highways hold an air of mystery that continues to inspire fear. There's no shortage of tales when it comes to haunted highways. One of the most infamous is Clinton Road in New Jersey, often dubbed the most haunted road in America. Travelers report ghostly sightings, strange lights in the woods, and even a spectral truck that follows them only to vanish into the night. Then there's Route 666, also known as the Devil's Highway. Stretching through the desert, this road is plagued by stories of shadowy figures, unexplained accidents, and the ominous appearance of black dogs that seem to be omens of doom. Another classic tale comes from Texas's Haunted Mile on Bragg Road. Once a railway path, the road is shrouded in dense forest, and travelers have reported seeing ghostly lantern lights floating in the distance. Legend has it that the lights belong to the ghost of a decapitated conductor, eternally searching for his lost head. Each of these stories shares a common thread, a sense of isolation and vulnerability. Highways are places where help is often miles away, making the thought of encountering something supernatural even more terrifying. But the most unsettling stories are often the ones that involve direct, face-to-face encounters, like the tale of the vanishing hitchhiker. A man picks up a hitchhiker on a stormy night, only to have them disappear from the passenger seat without a trace, or the phantom vehicles that appear out of nowhere, chasing drivers before disappearing into the ether. One of the most terrifying highway tales involves a man named Lucas. He was driving home late at night after visiting his parents in a small rural town. The highway stretched endlessly before him, and the only light came from his headlights and the occasional flicker of the moon through the trees. About an hour into the drive, Lucas noticed a pair of dim, flickering headlights in his rearview mirror. The car was far behind, but seemed to be gaining on him. At first he didn't think much of it, just another traveler on the lonely road. But as the car approached, he noticed something strange. The headlights were erratic, swaying from side to side, as if the driver was drunk or the vehicle was malfunctioning. Suddenly the car accelerated, closing the distance between them in seconds. It was an old, rusted pickup truck, its grille dented and its windshield cracked. Lucas felt a chill run down his spine when he realized there was no driver behind the wheel. The truck roared past him, its horn blaring before vanishing into the darkness ahead. Shaken, Lucas tried to rationalize what he had seen. Perhaps it was a trick of the light, or his own fatigue playing tricks on him. But then the truck appeared again, this time parked on the side of the road with its lights off. As Lucas drove past, he swore he saw a shadowy figure standing next to it, watching him. Before he could react, the truck roared to life and pulled onto the road behind him, its headlights blindingly bright. Lucas's heart pounded as he pressed the accelerator, desperate to put distance between himself and the mysterious vehicle. The truck followed closely, its horn blaring in a maddening rhythm. Just when Lucas thought he couldn't take it anymore, the truck swerved off the road and disappeared into the trees. He didn't stop to investigate. He just kept driving, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. When he finally reached home, he was too shaken to sleep. The next morning he searched for news of an accident or a missing person, but there was nothing. The truck had vanished, leaving no trace. Lucas's experience is far from unique. Stories like his are reported from highways around the world. Some attribute these encounters to ghosts, others to hallucinations brought on by exhaustion. But for those who've experienced them, the terror is all too real. Next is the story of the phantom truck. On a long, desolate road in Nevada, Travelers report seeing bright headlights barreling toward them out of nowhere. The lights speed closer and closer, only to vanish seconds before impact. Witnesses swear they feel the rumble of an engine and see the dust kicked up, but when they check their rearview mirrors, nothing. Then there's the eerie tale of a roadside diner that vanishes. One couple, driving through Arizona in the 1980s, stopped at a small diner for coffee and pie. It was quaint, with 1950s decor and a friendly waitress. After leaving, they realized they had forgotten a bag. When they turned around just minutes later, the diner was gone. In its place was an empty lot, overgrown with weeds, as though it hadn't existed for decades. To this day, they can't explain what they experienced. One of the most chilling highway horror stories comes from a rural road in Texas, known locally as the Devil's Curve. In the 1970s, a young man named Jacob was driving home after a late shift. The road was infamous for accidents, but Jacob had driven it hundreds of times and wasn't worried until he saw a figure standing on the roadside, waving for help. Against his better judgment, he stopped. The figure, a pale woman in torn clothes, pleaded with him to take her to a nearby town. She climbed into the back seat, and as Jacob drove, he couldn't shake the cold air that filled the car. He asked where she was from, but she didn't answer. Instead, she murmured something he couldn't understand. When he glanced in the rearview mirror, the woman's face had changed. It was skeletal, with hollow eyes staring straight at him. Jacob slammed on the brakes and turned around, but the back seat was empty. Terrified, he sped to the nearest gas station, where the clerk told him he wasn't the first to report seeing her. Locals believe she's the ghost of a woman who died in a car crash decades ago, forever searching for a ride out of the Devil's Curve. The infamous legend of the vanishing hitchhiker. Across countless highways worldwide, drivers have reported picking up a hitchhiker, only for them to disappear without a trace before reaching their destination. One driver described picking up a woman in a flowing white dress late one night. She barely spoke during the ride, only mumbling an address. But when he arrived and turned to tell her they were there, the passenger seat was empty. He knocked on the door of the house, only to be told by the homeowner that the woman had died in a car accident on that very stretch of road years ago. Highway horror often leaves a lasting impact on those who encounter it. Many victims report a newfound fear of driving at night, or an unshakable feeling of being watched whenever they're on the road. For some, the psychological toll is as haunting as the events themselves. Yet these tales persist, fueling our fascination with the unknown. They remind us of how small and vulnerable we are in the grand scheme of things, how despite all our technology and advancements, there are still things we can't explain. Highway horror stories tap into our deepest fears: isolation, vulnerability, and the unknown. They remind us that the road, a symbol of freedom and adventure, can also be a place of danger and dread. But perhaps the most unsettling aspect of these stories is the idea that they could happen to anyone. The next time you're driving down a lonely stretch of road and you catch something strange in your peripheral vision, you'll remember these tales. And maybe, just maybe, you'll think twice before pulling over or looking back. The road holds secrets, both mundane and mysterious. It's a place where the veil between the natural and the supernatural feels thinner, where the ordinary can become extraordinary in the blink of an eye. Do you have your own highway horror story? Maybe you've experienced something strange while driving at night, or maybe you know someone who has. Share your story in the comments below. I'd love to hear about it. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to check out my other content on urban legends and paranormal encounters. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you don't miss any future videos. Until next time, drive safe and watch out for what lurks in the shadows.